Hello guys, this is Trinity Storm here and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to do a movie on what if Naruto has power of angel and demon. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget to follow me on my other social media handles. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
The high heavens and the burning hells have waged an endless war for anything of value within their realms of order and chaos since the beginning of time. No side had gained much for a long time, and in their struggle, they frequently destroyed much of what they sought to claim. It was known as the Great Conflict, and it encompassed all other wars and events, including the Sin War. Anarius, a powerful angel and member of the Angiras Council of the High Heavens, began the story. Tired of the constant fighting, he saw little point in their endless war against Hell. Anarius begins his search for others who share his views on the war, convinced that there must be others like him in both heaven and hell. To his surprise, there were many like himself, and he led a great exodus with Lilith, Mephisto's daughter. They defected from heaven and hell and searched for a peaceful place to live. They were successful in stealing the World Stone and completing two tasks that would forever change the course of history. Sanctuary, the world of men, was created as a paradise and refuge from the Great Conflict. Create the first humans, the Nephilim. They used the stolen World Stone to defend this newly formed world against both heaven and hell. It served as a protective barrier, preventing angels and demons from directly invading Sanctuary or even noticing its existence. It was unclear how it worked, even to those who used it in the first place, but it did work. The two races of heaven and hell attempted to coexist peacefully on Sanctuary, and even mated, producing the Nephilim, the first generation of humans. It became clear quickly that the Nephilim were as powerful as their parents and had the potential to be far more powerful than any angel or demon. This sparked conflict among the higher beings. Anarius wanted to kill the humans because he saw them as a threat to their own survival. Lilith, on the other hand, desired to raise the Nephilim to the level of an army capable of fighting both heaven and hell. When the two started fighting, Anarius expelled Lilith from Sanctuary and imprisoned her in the void, claiming Sanctuary for himself. Many Nephilim were killed during this time, but some, such as Bull Kathos and Rothma, survived. The latter became the servant of Tragul, a mystical dragon who would become Sanctuary's future guardian. The prime evils of hell eventually discovered Sanctuary. Recognizing humanity's potential as a weapon against heaven, they established the Triune religion to entice humans to their side. In order to combat the three prime evils, Anarius built his own Cathedral of Light. The two forces fought behind the scenes on Sanctuary, while heaven was unaware of Sanctuary's existence. The world was largely unaffected as the two religions waged a constant but seemingly minor war against each other. The two churches occasionally meddled in people's daily lives, but no one knew the true identities of the religions except the highest-ranking church servants. Everything changed when Lilith escaped from her prison. She returned to Sanctuary, determined to use humans to her advantage and conquer both heaven and hell. In the midst of these events, a man named Uldysian, a distant descendant of Anarius and Lilith, became entangled in her schemes. Lilith, unbeknownst to him, bestowed magical powers on him and framed him, making it appear as if he had slain both the Triune and the Cathedral of Light's servants. Lilith disguised herself as Lilia, a human, and duped Uldysian into doing what she wanted. Uldysian believed that these abilities were innate in all humans, and he, along with Mendel, his younger brother, Saranthea, a longtime family friend infatuated with Uldysian and the daughter of merchant Cyrus, and Achilleos, a childhood friend and archer, fled the town of Sarum, fearing for their lives. People who were once close friends and neighbors turned against Uldysian, terrified of his new abilities and what it appeared he did with them. Uldysian blamed the Triune and the Cathedral for his predicament, and so set out to awaken these powers in others, so that they could live in a world created by themselves, rather than the Triune or Cathedral. The journey was difficult at first, but with the unknown assistance of Lilith, more and more people who could use magic were discovered and gathered under Uldysian. They were known as the Edirum, and their leader was Uldysian. These actions were fraught with peril. Lucian, the Triune's leader and Mephisto's son, dispatched a formidable army to hunt down Uldysian, including Malik, Deimos, Gulag, and Astroa, the latter who also appears in other novels, most notably Moon of the Spider. Rothma took notice of Mendeln at this time. Rothma was the first servant of Tragul, a great dragon connected to Sanctuary but not aligned with heaven or hell. He was the son of Anarius and Lilith. Rothma took Mendeln on as an apprentice, and the two became the first necromancers. Meanwhile, Lilith realized that her plans would be thwarted unless something was done with the Worldstone. Anarius had created the crystal to both protect the world and limit human power. No human army of hers would ever wage war against heaven or hell as long as it stood. Uldysian, on the other hand, was brought there, and after a brief brawl with Bulkathos, he was allowed into the Worldstone chamber, accompanied by Rothma. Rothma suggested Uldysian try to change the Worldstone to favor him and his people after killing bat-like demons, despite his doubts. Rothma, and later Anarius, were astounded by what he did. Uldysian had changed the crystal's structure, which not even Anarius could reverse. This change had massive ramifications, as it not only stopped the Nephilim from weakening, but also accelerated their power growth. Anarius was eventually drawn into the conflict. The tyrant ruler of Sanctuary, he considered himself superior to Uldysian and refused to interact with him. Because of this conviction, he dispatched his trusted assassin Gamuel to assassinate Uldysian. When the plot failed, Anarius resorted to even more desperate measures, striking a deal with Diablo himself. The humans' powers had grown enormously by this point, and a confrontation was on the horizon. Initially, Anarius did not see Uldysian as a threat, but as his efforts to stop the human failed, Anarius became increasingly desperate, though he refused to admit as much to himself. Diablo approached Anarius at this time, and the Prime Evil offered him a pact. They worked together to defeat Uldysian and his Edirum. At the same time, Tyrael discovered Sanctuary, and the High Heavens were soon informed of its existence. The High Heavens considered Sanctuary and its inhabitants to be an abomination to existence and dispatched armies directly to Sanctuary. Tragul, Sanctuary's guardian, used his immense power to keep the angels at bay, but he could not do so indefinitely. Uldysian and Anarius also clashed, and that battle is without a doubt the fiercest that has ever taken place on Sanctuary's face, and likely will ever take place. Both wielded godlike strength and constantly altered the landscape around them as they fought. A tear appeared in the sky as the hosts of angels finally arrived and invaded Sanctuary. Uldysian's entire body was infused with energy soon after, and he gained a deeper understanding of Sanctuary itself, easily breaking the bond between Anarius and the Worldstone. Anarius, without the enormous amount of power at his disposal, was easily defeated by Uldysian and imprisoned until the Angiras Council decided his fate. Tyrael discovered Uldysian and bound him soon after the angels arrived at Sanctuary. Demons from the burning hells erupted onto the landscape, determined not to let the angels destroy what they sought to exploit, and a three-way battle ensued. Angels on one side, demons on the other, and the Edirum caught in the middle. Uldysian, still shackled, was forced to watch his people fight both angels and demons. Overcome with emotion, he finally broke free from Tyrael bonds and demanded that the armies cease their operations. Surprisingly, they all became time-frozen. Uldysian then expelled the angels and demons from his realm. He began restoring the landscape to its original state before all of the destruction. As he did so, his powers refused to cooperate, instead destroying the environment he was attempting to repair. He realized that the only thing he could do was draw the destruction into himself, so he did so with all his might. Finally, after taking in all of Sanctuary's devastation, Tragul led him to the Void to release it. Following the battle, the Angiras Council and Mephisto convened for a meeting. Sanctuary had been almost completely destroyed, but all hope was not lost. Some, such as Rothma, begged heaven to spare Sanctuary. The angels cast their ballots. Imperius voted against Sanctuary's existence, while Auriel argued passionately in favor of it. Tyrael cast the deciding vote, despite his initial lack of compassion for humanity, which has clearly evolved in the years since this event. Heaven and Hell struck an agreement with the help of Mephisto. Sanctuary was to be self-sufficient with no interference from Heaven or Hell. Humanity would make their own decisions. In exchange for his agreement, Mephisto obtained custody of Anarius and transported him to the burning hells. Mephisto was looking for Anarius because he and his daughter Lilith were responsible for the creation of Sanctuary and the Nephalem. This was followed by a world reset.
With these guidelines, time was reverted to the point where Uldysian left his home village, and events were unmade so that the inhabitants of Sanctuary could mature on their own, without the influence of the Triune or the Cathedral.
All memories were erased except those of the original Nephalem, the reasoning being that the original Nephalem were few and would die soon enough anyway, and Mendel, Trag'Oul saved his memory so he could remember his brother's sacrifice and teach any willing students the ways of the balance. Saranthia was resurrected, and Achilleos was transformed back into a living human as a result of Uldysian's sacrifice. This is a direct result of Uldysian's sacrifice, and has nothing to do with the Angiras Council or Mephisto. The Cathedral and Triune had vanished. The four lesser evils of Hell are Asmodin, Belial, Andariel, and Duriel. The four lesser evils plotted and eventually exiled the three primes into Sanctuary, whether Diablo and his brothers intended it or not. In their absence, Belial, the Lord of Lies, and Asmodin, the Lord of Sin, waged civil war against each other. Their conflict has raged for eons in the depths of Hell. Tyrael learns of the Three's exile into Sanctuary and organizes a counter-offensive. He creates the Horadrim, a group of the most powerful human magi, including Deckard Cain's ancestor, Jared Cain, and Tal Rasha. Tyrael assigns the Horadrim to capture the three prime evils, giving them soulstones to imprison Diablo and his brother's souls within. They find and imprison the primes one by one. Because they are unable to permanently destroy the demons, the Horadrim are forced to hide the soulstones. Baal's soulstone was imprisoned inside a massive tomb built with one goal in mind: to keep him in and others out. Because of his destructive nature, Baal had damaged his soulstone during his capture. Knowing that the final shard of Baal's broken soulstone was insufficient to contain the prime evil, Tal Rasha chose to use his own body as a prison for the prime. Tal Rasha hid the evil within his chest and bound himself to a pillar, remaining in the tomb for centuries. Mephisto's soulstone was sealed inside a temple in Karast, despite the fact that he and Baal were captured in Aranok. The Horadrim chose to relocate him rather than imprison two primes so close to each other. Its defense was entrusted to the Zakaram monks. Ultimately, however, the soulstone corrupted the monks and Mephisto took a host among them. Diablo had fled to the west and evaded capture for decades after his brothers were apprehended. He was eventually apprehended near today's Westmarch, and the Horadrim erected a cathedral above his tomb to serve as a watchtower. However, as time passed, the Horadrim fell apart, and no one else remembered the evil contained within. Leoric, a conquering hero, established himself as king of Condoras, a kingdom on Sanctuary's western continent. He made Tristram the capital of this kingdom and used the abandoned cathedral there as his throne and administrative center. Soon after, the Lord of Terror's soulstone drew King Leoric's most trusted advisor, Archbishop Lazarus, deeper into the cathedral. The Archbishop shattered the soulstone, releasing Diablo's trapped spirit, whether out of fear or temptation. In order to fully manifest as the Lord of Terror, Diablo had Archbishop Lazarus kidnap King Leoric's son, Prince Albrecht, and bring him down into the cathedral for Diablo to corrupt and use as his host. The king, already deranged from Diablo's attempts to possess him, went insane in his search for his lost son, killing many innocent people out of guilt. Lazarus eventually led the town's warriors into the cathedral to set up a trap for the butcher, a minion wielding a bloody cleaver. King Leoric's physical form had withered away, but his soul had not, and he reappeared as a massive skeleton, still wearing his golden crown. Hearing rumors of a corrupting evil, vast riches, and arcane magic, several heroes traveled to Tristram. Deckard Cain, a Horadrim descendant, accompanied the heroes on their journeys. Canonically, it was Aiden, the first game's playable warrior character, the son of Leoric, who sought and ultimately defeated Diablo. Aiden forced Diablo's soulstone into his own forehead, believing he could deal with its evil. When Aiden returned to Tristram, the town celebrated their champion's victory, but he was a changed man, haunted by Diablo's essence. Aiden left Tristram and traveled to the east in search of answers to his nightmares. The vanquisher of Diablo seeks refuge from the blizzard in a tavern. The tormented champion, perhaps stirred by the other drunk men, or perhaps simply unable to contain the Lord of Terror within himself any longer, erupts into chaos. All within the tavern are spawned and slain by demons and skeletons, except for one. Marius, a human bystander whom the Wanderer urges to follow him for unknown reasons. The champion is renamed the Dark Wanderer and begins his journey to the Rogue Monastery. Once there, he orders the Sisters of the Sightless Eye to leave their monastery and assigns Andariel to protect the pass from anyone who might follow. This bothers Deckard Cain, who is concerned that Andariel, who was once one of the demons who overthrow Diablo, now appears to be assisting the prime evil. As heroes came to Tristram in search of adventure, glory, or riches, more come to the rogue encampment for similar reasons. A group of adventurers forms to investigate the monastery and the evils that lurk within. They rescue Deckard Cain from an overrun Tristram and follow him to the monastery, where they defeat Andariel and find clear passage to Lut Gholein. The Wanderer travels east to Lut Gholein with Marius in search of Tal Rasha's tomb and discovers Tal Rasha still imprisoned in the final chamber. Tyrael, on the other hand, has discovered the Wanderer's escape from Tristram and is waiting for him. Tyrael and the newly empowered Wanderer engage in combat. Baal, still trapped in Tal Rasha's body, notices Marius, and despite the fact that the prime evil has greatly deformed his host over the years of imprisonment, he is powerful enough to trick Marius into seeing him as nothing more than a chained human. He entices Marius to take the soulstone from Tal Rasha's chest, thereby destroying Baal's prison. Tyrael is overpowered by Baal and his brother Diablo, who trap him in the tomb and summon Duriel to prevent the Archangel from following. Tyrael, unable to pursue, assigns Marius the task of obtaining Baal's soulstone and traveling to the eastern kingdom of Karast. There, the Archangel orders Marius to enter Hell and destroy the soulstone at the Hellforge. The heroes who assassinated Andariel at the monastery are now on the hunt for the tomb of Tal Rasha, where Baal, the Lord of Destruction, is said to be imprisoned. The adventurers eventually find their way to the arcane sanctuary thanks to Cain, the Horadric cube, and the inhabitants of Lut Gholein. They discover the Summoner, the entrance to the Canyon of the Magi, and Tal Rasha's tomb in that twisted reality. The party defeats Duriel and frees Tyrael after discovering the true tomb. Forced to pursue the Dark Wanderer and Baal, the heroes sail east to Karast, the Zakarim's capital. The Dark Wanderer, whose corruption by Diablo's spirit continues to pervert his form, and Baal travel to Karast to free their eldest brother Mephisto. The last imprisoned prime evil was once entrusted to the Zakarim Church, but he was able to corrupt the entire faith from within his soulstone, and all but their highest leader, Khalim, the K-Hagan, succumbed to his influence. The High Council, which had previously led the Paladin's Order, became Mephisto's arm in Sanctuary. Once they reach Karast, the two evils have little trouble reaching their brother. The Dark Wanderer takes on a new form as the Lord of Terror, Diablo, and the three open a portal to Hell. Diablo is tasked with reclaiming Hell for them, presumably from Asmodin and Belial. Diablo walks through the portal into Hell. Marius has witnessed their meeting and his companion's transformation while completely unaware of the three. Despite being commanded by Tyrael to enter Hell, he lacks the courage to do so. Instead, he withdraws and seeks refuge in a mental institution. Baal is likely to follow Diablo shortly after, as he is not present when the player reaches the lowest level of Mephisto's durance. Mephisto has stayed behind to stop them, so the three must be aware of the heroes pursuing them by now. He is defeated, however, by the daring band of heroes. His soul stone is unharmed and is carried through the portal to Hell. In Hell, the heroes find themselves operating out of the Pandemonium Fortress, Heaven's main fortress in its war against Hell. The heroes are then given 3 important missions to complete. Seek out and slay Isuel, the fallen angel, for his treachery. Seek out the Hellforge and break Mephisto's soulstone. Seek Diablo in his lair and expel him from the mortal realm. Isuel was once one of Tyrael's most famous lieutenants, until he led an ill-fated assault on the Hellforge, against the wishes of the Angiras Council. Attempting to halt the development of Shadowfang, an evil weapon designed to combat the Azurath, the blade carried by Isuel himself. He was apprehended and tortured for information during the assault. He caved in and revealed the Heaven's secrets to the armies of Hell. When he returned from the pits of Hell, the Angiras Council, enraged by his disobedience and betrayal, punished him by imprisoning his form within an abyssal demon and banishing him to the void. Tyrael assigns this quest and requests that Isuel be relieved of his suffering. Initially, he appears to be a miserable character, but after his death, Isuel tells the band of adventurers that he taught the prime evils how to corrupt the soulstones, assisting them in masterminding their own exile into Sanctuary. In reality, Isuel appears to have played an important role in the plot, and the Dark Exile would not have occurred without him. The heroes approach Diablo after killing Isuel and shattering Mephisto's soulstone. In the Chaos Sanctuary, the Lord of Terror fortifies himself. Its architecture is impressive and gothic, but its function is unknown. Diablo is defeated, and his soulstone is shattered at the Hellforge. Now that Diablo has been defeated, Baal seeks out Marius and discovers him in the asylum. Baal, disguised as Tyrael, requests that Marius hand over the soulstone to him. He does, only to realize his colossal error moments later. Baal murders Marius and destroys the asylum. Marius' failure does not bode well for Sanctuary. Baal, the last surviving prime evil, reappears. Fortunately for Baal, he was imprisoned in Tal Rasha, and the great Horadrim mage was one of the few who knew the precise location of the Worldstone, the barrier that separated Sanctuary from the rest of the worlds. He launches an all-out assault on Mount Ariat after learning of its location. His attack on Mount Ariat and the barbarians who live there is successful. Hell overwhelms the human forces, and only one city, Harrogath, survives in the end. All but one of the town's elders, Nilithik, gave their lives to raise a ward to keep demons at bay. Regardless, Baal is unaffected by this last town and continues on his way to Mount Ariat. The heroes arrive in this town and fight their way forward in Baal's tracks from there. Atop Mount Ariat stands the Worldstone's last defenders, 3 barbarian heroes named Korlik, Medofts, and Talik, who were chosen by some Nephalim, most likely Bull Kathos and others, to stand guard over Mount Ariat and protect it from anyone who tried to enter without carrying the relic of the ancients. This relic was in the possession of Harrogath's elders, and when they all died, it was left to Nilithik. Knowing this, Baal gave Nilithik the relic in exchange for Harrogath's safety. He was able to freely pass the ancients once he had the relic. Because the heroes lacked the relic, they were forced to confront the ancients as they followed Baal. Despite the fact that the ancients should have aided humanity and even spoken out against Baal and his actions, they fought alongside the heroes, but were defeated and allowed the humans to enter the Worldstone Keep. Baal is discovered and killed within, but not before he reaches the Worldstone and taints it. Tyrael appears next to the Worldstone and grants the heroes safe passage back to Harrogath, but he must contend with the corrupted Worldstone's predicament. He hurls his flaming sword into the Worldstone and shatters it into an infinite number of pieces, its destruction appearing as if Tyrael had thrown a boulder into a lake of water, but the splashes and ripples were manifested as shards of crystal. 20 years later, Deckard Cain and Leah are investigating ancient texts concerning an ominous prophecy in Tristram Cathedral, the same cathedral that served as the setting for Diablo the First game. Deckard Cain is presumed dead after a mysterious star falls from the sky and strikes the cathedral, creating a deep crater. A hero arrives in New Tristram to investigate the falling star that hit the cathedral and is now emitting risen undead. The hero goes with Leah to the cathedral to save Cain from the crater into which he fell. After rescuing Cain, the hero discovers that the only way to reach the fallen star is to defeat King Leoric, the former Condor's ruler known as the Skeleton King. Cain informs the hero that in order to defeat him, Leoric's crown must be recovered, and the hero searches for Leoric's crown with the assistance of Hadrig Aemon, the blacksmith of New Tristram. After reclaiming the crown, the hero returns to the cathedral, where he or she eventually encounters and rescues Cormac, a Templar warrior kidnapped by members of the Dark Coven cult. They defeat Leoric together and discover a stranger where the fallen star landed. The stranger's only recollection is of a sword shattering into 3 pieces as he fell. The hero recovers the sword fragments from the Khazra Den in the Drowned Temple, despite opposition from the Dark Coven's witch Magda, who assists a bandit named Lyndon in retrieving a false relic. Magda, on the other hand, finds the 3rd piece before the protagonist and attempts to force Cain to repair the sword. Leah, on the other hand, uses a surge of magical power to kill the cultists, forcing Magda to kill Cain and flee with the stranger. Cain, before dying, repairs the sword and assigns it to the hero, revealing that both the sword and the stranger are angelic. After a bloody battle with the Butcher, a powerful demon, the hero pursues Magda into the bowels of King Leoric's dilapidated torture chambers beneath his manor, rescuing the stranger and returning his sword to him. After recovering the stranger's memories, it is revealed that he is the Archangel Tyrael, the aspect of justice. Tyrael abandons his divinity to become immortal and warns Sanctuary about the arrival of the demon lords Belial, Lord of Lies, and Asmodin, who are both unwilling to protect humanity from the forces of Hell, Lord of Sin. The hero, Leah, and Tyrael then journey to Caldeum. The hero departs for Alcarnus on orders from Ashira, commander of the Iron Wolves, while Leah and Tyrael search the city sewers for evidence of Belial. The hero first meets a young enchantress named Irena who introduces herself as being from another era. With Irena's assistance, the hero tracks down and halts cultists who are channeling an illusion. Moving on, the hero arrives at the Qasim outpost, where he discovers that Belial's serpent demons have imprisoned and replaced the true guards. The hero reclaims the Qasim outpost from the serpent demons and gains access to Alcarnus after freeing Captain David and his men. After releasing the prisoners, the hero confronts and kills Magda in her lair, avenging Cain, before returning to Caldeum to rescue Leah from the clutches of the Imperial Guards. During an audience with Haakon II, the young Emperor of Caldeum, the hero is blamed for the chaos at Alcarnus, and the Emperor orders the hero's death and the delivery of Leah to him, forcing the hero to flee the palace. Leah, who has escaped to the sewers, reveals that her mother, Adria, is still alive. The hero helps Leah save Adria from the city's sewers. Adria reveals that the Black Soulstone is the key to defeating the forces of Hell. It was created by the deranged warlock Zoltan Kull and has the power to trap and destroy the souls of the 7 lords of Hell. Leah explains that Kull was killed by the Horadrim before completing the stone, and that his severed head was sealed off in the lush Dulgur oasis. If the Soulstone is to be recovered, Adria instructs the hero to locate the warlock's head in the oasis. After retrieving the head, Leah resurrects Zoltan Kull's ghost, and Tyrael instructs him to activate the Black Soulstone. To reach the stone, Kull claims that 2 vials of his blood hidden by the Horadrim in the Desolate Sands are required. Leah decides to accompany the hero while hiding the warlock's head in the hero's packs. After retrieving the 2 vials of blood, the hero searches Kull's archives for his body, while Leah prepares the ritual to resurrect Kull. After resurrecting Kull, the hero is led into the archive's inner sanctum, where the Black Soulstone can be found, but he is forced to defeat Kull when the resurrected warlock tries to take the Soulstone for himself. When the hero returns to Caldeum, he finds the city under attack by Belial's forces. Leah and Adria fight their way to the palace with the hero, revealing Belial as the Emperor in disguise to deceive and eventually defeat them. Leah then traps Belial's soul within the Black Soulstone, freeing Chaldeum, and has a vision of Asmodin, the Demon Lord, invading Sanctuary from the crater of Mount Arreat, destroyed earlier in history by Tyrael, in order to retrieve the Black Soulstone and empower himself, becoming the prime evil. The hero journeys to Bastion's Keep with Tyrael, their followers, Leah, and Adria, only to discover that it is under attack by Asmodin's army. Tyrael orders the hero to assist the defenders by lighting the signal fires and raising the catapults on the keep's walls. After that, the hero enters the stronghold, where Asmodin's forces have broken through to the lower levels, defeating the demon Gome, the Lord of Gluttony. The hero then enters the battlefield, destroying Asmodin's siege weapons and traveling to Mount Arreat's crater. Tyrael assists the hero in reaching the demonic gate guarding the crater, which he destroys with his sword, Eldruin. The hero traverses the depths of Arreat's inner core, destroying the sin hearts that empower Asmodin and his armies after a grueling battle with a massive siegebreaker assault beast. Sidea, the Maiden of Lust, Asmodin's consort, tries to protect the hearts but is defeated by the hero, who then confronts and defeats Asmodin. Asmodin's soul is sealed within the Black Soulstone by Leah. With all 7 lords of hell trapped within the stone, Tyrael declares that destroying the stone will end the eternal conflict between heaven and hell. When the hero returns to Bastion's Keep, he discovers that Adria has betrayed him. Adria reveals that she has always served Diablo, and that Leah's father is Leoric's son Aiden, the Dark Wanderer, who was possessed by Diablo. Adria resurrects Diablo with the Black Soulstone, forcing Leah to serve as his vessel. Diablo becomes the prime evil, possessing all of the souls of the Lords of Hell, and launches an attack on the high heavens. When the hero arrives in the high heavens, it is already under attack. Imperius, the Valor aspect, blames the hero and Tyrael for their demise, causing Tyrael to despair. The hero, on the other hand, remains determined to fight and defeats the demon Iskatu. The hero is then approached by Itharael, the aspect of fate, who orders him to rescue Auriel, the aspect of hope, from Rakanoth, the Lord of Despair, in the Library of Fate. Auriel instructs the hero to close the Hell Rifts after rescuing Auriel and restoring hope to the forces of heaven. After that, the hero locates Tyrael, who has overcome his despair. They band together to prevent Diablo from reaching the Crystal Arch, the source of power for Heaven's forces, but not before a brawl with Isuel, Tyrael's corrupted former lieutenant. Diablo is defeated after a long and bloody battle, and his physical manifestation is destroyed. The Black Soulstone is shown still intact as it falls from the high heavens. Tyrael decides to rejoin the Angiras Council as the new aspect of wisdom, but he remains immortal, dedicated to establishing a permanent alliance between angels and humans. Tyrael recovers the Black Soulstone, which contains the essence of all 7 great evils, after Diablo is defeated by the Nephalim, the hero who defeated him not long ago. Knowing it is too dangerous to leave in the hands of mortals or angels, he and 6 Horadrim members return the Black Soulstone to Sanctuary and attempt to seal it away in the tomb of Rakkus, the first king of Westmarch, the kingdom established to the west of Condoras. However, the group is ambushed by Malthael, a former Archangel of Wisdom and member of the Angiras Council who vanished after the Worldstone was corrupted by Baal 20 years before. Malthael, now known as the Angel of Death, kills all but one of the Horadrim, incapacitates Tyrael, and steals the Black Soulstone. Tyrael dispatches Lorith Nar, the last surviving Horadrim, to find the Nephalim. Nar encounters the Nephalim outside Westmarch City, which has been overrun by Malthael's army of enslaved spirits and renegade angels, the Reapers. The Nephalim fights their way through the city sewers to the Zakarim Cathedral in the city center, where they meet Tyrael.
Tyrael reveals that now that Diablo has been defeated, Malthael sees humanity as a race of demons descended from the original Nephalim, the offspring of angels and demons.
By annihilating humanity, Malthael hopes to end the eternal conflict, the long war between heaven and hell. When Malthael took the Black Soulstone, a sliver broke off, and Tyrael attempts to use it to discover Malthael's plans. The Reapers send 2 soul crucibles into Westmarch City to collect the souls of the dead, which the Nephalem finds and destroys, earning the wrath of Urzael, Malthael's chief lieutenant, who awaits the hero in Westmarch Heights. Urzael is pursued by the Nephalem to the Tower of Corlin, where he is defeated in a bloody battle. Miriam Jazia, a mystic rescued during the attack on the Soul Crucibles, informs the Nephalem that Adria is in Westmarch looking for the Black Soulstone in order to resurrect her master. Lorith decides to accompany the hero, and after learning that Adria sealed the tomb's entrance with a rock slide, he suggests unlocking the guide stones to open the proper passageway. The Nephalem confronts Adria in the ancient ruins of the Blood Marsh outside Westmarch, where Adria manages to locate Malthael at the Pandemonium Fortress, built in the realm between heaven and hell to guard the Worldstone. She then transforms into a winged demonic creature, claiming Diablo sent her a vision of his return at the hands of the Nephalem, before being slain by the Nephalem. Tyrael leads the Nephalem back into the high heavens after learning of Malthael's location, where they discover the Pandemonium Gate under attack by Malthael's Reapers. After defeating the attackers, Imperius, aspect of valor and commander of Heaven's armies, reluctantly admits that Malthael must be stopped and leads the Nephalem into the realm of Pandemonium. Imperius orders the Nephalem to breach the fortress gates with an ancient battering ram, using siege runes held by the trapped demons. Tyrael appears just as the Nephalem is about to activate the ram, revealing that he has discovered Malthael's plan. He intends to use the Black Soulstone to consume all demonic essence in Sanctuary, including that which makes up humanity's bloodline, resulting in the extinction of humanity. Tyrael informs the Nephalem that they must become one with death, as Malthael is, in order to defeat him after breaching the gates with 4 hits with the battering ram. Inside the fortress, the Nephalem encounters a figure from their past who instructs them on how to open the soul prison hidden deep within its walls. The Nephalem channels the spirits of the prison and assumes the form of death before defeating the guardians who stand in the way of Malthael's sanctum at the heart of the fortress. This is where it deviates from the canon. For a time, the Nephalem hold their own against Malthael, until he shatters the Black Soulstone and absorbs the power of the 7 evils. Even with their newly acquired power, they were unable to defeat Malthael in time, and were forced to watch as humanity was wiped off the face of the earth itself, with the Nephalem being the last to perish as a result of the Soulstone's purge of all demonic. Malthael triumphantly stood over the body of the Nephalem, his plan having succeeded in bringing the eternal conflict to an end after so long. And when he was finished, he went back to his brothers to tell them that they no longer had to fight an endless senseless war. However, he was not welcomed in the high heavens as he had expected. Instead, he was cast out and banished for all eternity, his power sealed within him as a constant reminder of the fact that he had committed genocide as well as betrayed everything that the angels stood for. Even if his actions had brought peace, he had done so in a way that none of them would have done. So he set out into the empty world of Sanctuary itself, looking for a cave to isolate himself from the rest of the world, because he was no longer welcome in the high heavens and there wasn't another soul in all of Sanctuary to talk to about his actions. For thousands of years after what became known as the Purge, the angels became stagnant in their ways, as what purpose did they have without the forces of hell to fight against? They didn't even have a way to undo what had been done, so they all decided as a group to abandon their angelic nature and become the world's new humans, which they did. To begin their new life in Sanctuary, each took on a human form and a new name, but one of them brought with her an item of power that would remain in her family for many years to come, sealed away from the world until it came into the possession of one of her descendants named Kagura. At this point, humanity had spread to every corner of the globe, and conflicts had arisen as a result of various people's opposing viewpoints. After so many years, the true history of the world had been forgotten, and there was little order in the world because no one had the power to take charge and lead the people. So Kagura used the ancestor's item to bestow the power of nature and life on herself, which became known as chakra, in an attempt to bring some form of peace to the people, which worked for a time. But soon after, she had 2 children of her own, and as they grew older, they gave the power to others as well, resulting in internal struggles among those who held the power. Kagura used her power to create a creature to destroy those who threatened the peace she had worked so hard to achieve, but her own children turned against her, one of whom sealed the creature known as the Jubi into himself to grant himself an enormous power boost, which he used to seal his mother away in the moon itself, knowing that no one would ever be able to reach her and set her free. The power he gained began to twist his mind and consume him to the point where his perspectives became twisted. He declared himself the Sage of the Six Paths and launched a one-sided massacre against those who refused to submit to his will. Around 90% of the world resisted and was slaughtered by the man, who then took the survivors and placed them within what became known as the elemental countries, where he used his vast power to wipe out the people's memories, making them believe he was a saint when in reality he was nothing short of a monster.
Out of all those brought to the elemental countries, one man alone retained memories of the past through means he was unsure of.
He knew that the sage had to be stopped in order to avoid another massacre like the one that had occurred previously, and he sought the power to do so. He delegated this task to the elemental courtiers and traveled for years in search of the power he desired. He eventually came across the cave where Malthael had exiled himself for many years and asked him to assist him in defeating the sage, but Malthael refused, explaining that he would never fight another person again because he had shed enough blood in his long life to last forever. So the man asked Malthael for the ability to do it himself, to which Malthael agreed, but warned him that in death he would be changed in ways he could not predict because he was being given the power of death itself. The man accepted the power without hesitation, knowing that he would go to any length to save those who were dear to him. He took his time mastering the power bestowed upon him, and when he felt he was ready, he returned to face the sage himself. The battle was long and bloody, but in the end, the sage triumphed and slew the man who had challenged him, and in death, his power grew exponentially. He became a spirit of death known as the Shinigami, and with his increased strength he slew the sage by ripping out the demon he had sealed within himself, but the strain of such a thing split it into 9 separate creatures known as the Biju, and they scattered with a new lease on life as well as fragmented memories that they pieced together over time in such a way that they saw the Sage of the Six Paths as their father and a courageous man, and so he accepted the role of world peacekeeper and set out to create some sort of balance in the world. He ascended to the long-forgotten high heavens by killing the sage, where he gained even more power than before and claimed the title of Kami. He intended to return to the world of man to enslave them with his power, but by the time he gained it, the Shinigami had used it to form a barrier that sealed him off from the mortal realm, trapping him in the high heavens. Kami cursed the Shinigami and vowed to punish the world for his actions. The Shinigami also knew that, while the high heavens were a place for souls filled with light, there had to be a place for souls filled with evil. So he discovered the gates of hell and, as he had done for the high heavens, erected a barrier to keep the mortal realm out. Nonetheless, he needed to find someone to run it because it was now his responsibility to judge as well as ferry the souls of the world to their eternal destination within the afterlife. In his search for a soul to rule hell, he came across the entity known as Diablo himself, who had hidden away from the world much like Malthael himself, but instead of doing so in repentance, he did so to gather his demonic armies once more and destroy the high heavens. But what he didn't realize at the time was that when the Soulstone was destroyed, so were the other evils within it, because Diablo had used all of their demonic energy to just barely survive its destruction. Because of Malthael, there were no more evils to absorb into the world, just as there were no more demons. Diablo was stuck in his weakened state and would never regain the power he once possessed. He had attempted to taint and corrupt the Biju with demonic energy in order to create more evils for him to absorb, but it had failed and only made them far stronger. So the Shinigami offered him a second chance to rule hell because he would never be able to achieve his goals, which he reluctantly accepted because the Shinigami was correct. And as he reclaimed the throne, he decided to abandon his own name because Diablo was a name of a prime evil, and he would never regain that kind of power again, so he was unworthy of such a fearsome name, so he settled for Lucifer or Satan if you prefer. The Shinigami saw the world balance itself out with the distribution of chakra to the people, with some not being able to use it as others could. And those who could form clans and roam the lands in search of permanent homes. It would take about 100 years for the countries to be divided as they are now, and another few hundred years for the shinobi villages to emerge. However, Once they were, it marked the start of a new endless conflict, this time between mankind and itself rather than angel and demon. The Shinigami watched as the world began to fall apart after 3 great shinobi wars in 100 years, and it appeared that another one would follow if the events of the past were any indication. Yet the Shinigami knew that he could do nothing more than guide the poor and corrupt souls who died as a result of the battles and conflicts that man had created for themselves, because when Malthael gave him the power, he saw what he had done to try to force peace in the world and knew that he couldn't mess with the affairs of humanity lest he do the same. So all hope of future peace was lost, at least until the Shinigami himself was summoned by a man who made the ultimate sacrifice to seal one of the Biju within his son to prevent it from destroying the village. 7 years after the Kyuubi incident, Naruto, a 7-year-old boy with blonde hair, was running through the forest. People who were unaware of Naruto's life outside of the village would wonder why a 7-year-old child was running through the forest on his birthday, when he should be celebrating with friends and family. The answer is that it wasn't just Naruto's birthday, but also the day the Kyuubi was defeated 7 years ago and the day the civilians of the village gathered for the annual fox hunt. This fox hunt described a horde of civilians who would pursue Naruto if he was discovered in the village. Today was no exception, as he had left his apartment in search of something to do on his birthday. So he left early to eat at the Ichirakus, who were 2 of the few people in the village who didn't ignore or attack him. Unlike the others in the village, the blonde appreciated having people he could trust and care for. He never made it to the ramen stand because he was discovered by a mob of civilians who chased him out to the forest on the outskirts of the village. They had thrown sharp objects at him, and they had found their marks, as evidenced by the fact that he was bleeding from both arms and one of his legs. Citizens are idiots. Villagers are idiots. What a stupid village. I haven't done anything, and all they do is treat me like dirt, yelled Naruto in his head, oblivious to the hole in front of him. When Naruto returned to the real world, it was too late because he had already placed his foot in the hole and had fallen forward into it. Naruto screamed as he fell into the pitch-black darkness. As he fell, he could hear the mob laughing and cheering, saying that they had finally finished the fourth's work. If Naruto wasn't so scared for his life right now, he would have been angry. Fortunately for him, there was a small pile of rubble and dirt at the bottom of the hole, which softened the blow for Naruto, but it still hurt. Naruto stood up and looked around to see where he was after 10 minutes of recovering and regaining his breath. Strangely, it wasn't as dark as he expected, and he noticed a strange light in the room in front of him. Walking forward, Naruto came across an amazing discovery that made his eyes blink in wonder. For in front of him was a jet-black door that glowed with energy like he'd never seen before. He reached out to push the doors open, and they opened on their own accord as a result of his touch. He walked into the room, where the doors slammed shut behind him because he had nowhere else to go. Naruto kept going because his curiosity was getting the best of him and he needed to see this through. He noticed that he was in a dimly lit room, with the only source of light coming from a torch on the other side of the room, which strangely had a blue flame. Naruto was astounded because he had never seen blue flames before, and the fact that he was a child only added to his sense of awe. "So it appears that you are the one I felt had both angelic and demonic energy within you," said a voice behind Naruto, making him jump in fear. What he saw was the room lighting up with more blue torches, allowing him to see who was speaking, and what he saw scared him because standing there was a tall intimidating figure wearing what appeared to be an armored version of a cloak with the hood up so his face was not visible, and to top off the creepy factor was a pair of what appeared to be wings made up of either some type of energy that he was unaware of or some type of smoke. He wasn't sure before Naruto passed out from fear. The man dropped his sickle-like weapons in hand to demonstrate that he meant no harm to the boy. He informed him that he had a proposal for him that would be far more beneficial to him than anything else in the world could provide. He introduced himself as Malthael and explained that he wanted to pass on his powers to the boy so that he could become mortal and pass away because he was tired of living. Naruto was initially afraid to respond, but Malthael demonstrated what his powers were capable of when mastered. He told the boy the true history of the world from the beginning to the end, up to the present day, which made Naruto's head hurt because there was so much to take in. But he turned down the offer because he wanted to gain power his own way, without taking any shortcuts in life. Malthael then told him that, while his reasoning was sound, he would never grow stronger under the watch of those who ruled over him. Naruto called him a liar because he knew the Hokage would let him grow strong in order to protect the village. Malthael retorted by saying that while he would be defending the village, which was correct, the Hokage would never allow him to grow strong because he wanted Naruto under his control. And to prove his point, he opened a portal that showed past events that he had watched over the years, including all the meetings he had with various Anbu who were supposed to be watching him, as well as the plans they devised to humble him by allowing people to hurt him and then swooping in to save them at the last second. He witnessed the Hokage conversing with a man with spiky white hair about a prophecy involving him, as well as the identity of his parents and plans to take everything that legally belonged to Naruto by rights of inheritance once a seal could be created to open the doors to the mansion that was also Naruto's by law. Naruto had sobbed on his knees because he didn't know what to do with his life now that it had been nothing but a big lie. So Malthael offered him his power once more so that he could use it to exact his revenge. However, he warned him that once his mortal body died, he would be forever bound to the realm of man in spirit because it would be his duty as the Angel of Death to maintain the world's balance. This time, Naruto accepted his offer without hesitation, and he was granted the full extent of his power, which was painful for him to accept because it improved his body in almost every way imaginable. His body, which had been skinny and malnourished, was now healthy and strong. His mind was now far more intelligent than anyone else's in the world, and a plan for how to play this out formed in his head. Malthael's mortal body smiled once as he fell forward dead, his old age rapidly decaying his body and spreading his dust to the wind as it blew through the room. Naruto knew he needed to leave the village to train in his full powers, and right now as the way he was a dead giveaway that something had made him powerful, and with his far superior mind he knew that the higher-ups wouldn't like that and would try to seal away his power in some way. He looked in the mirror and noticed that he was slightly taller and had the body of a young bodybuilder. His clothes were jet black, with a dark gray shirt in the kanji for death on the back, a hood that covered his face in shadow to conceal his identity, black pants, and thick black combat boots, similar to what his father wore during his time as Hokage. Naruto walked over to his new weapons, which he would learn to use over time, and contemplated his next move. Then an idea struck him. He used his abilities to create an exact clone of his former self, right down to the mindset. The village wanted a gullible boy to manipulate into becoming their future weapon, so that's what he'd give them for the time being so he could go out into the world and master his powers. It was then that he realized there was one more piece of the puzzle he needed to complete the illusion. While Naruto was talking to Malthael, the Kyuubi within him was cowering in fear in his cage because he knew who this man was because he saw the same memories that Naruto had seen. He knew Naruto could easily kill him with his new power, and he would beg to be spared if and when Naruto came to speak to him. And just as he was about to say that, Naruto entered his mindscape to do exactly that. When he saw Naruto standing there, the Kyuubi bowed submissively, and Naruto walked up to him, breaking the bars of his cage like they were nothing, and grabbed him by the nose and pulled his face so he could look him square in the eyes. Naruto told him that he should kill him for all the pain he had been forced to endure because he was sealed inside of him, and Kyuubi began to sweat profusely in fear as he said this. However, Naruto calmed his nerves by offering him a chance at redemption by being resealed within his clone, fooling those in charge of the village into believing he was the real Naruto. Kyuubi agreed right away and was told that once his part of the plan was completed, he would be sent to the depths of hell itself to torment human souls for the rest of eternity. The Kyuubi told him he was too nice and prepared himself to be resealed, which he was. As Naruto stepped out of the cage to escape his mindscape, he was met by the spirits of his parents, who had placed a fragment of themselves in the seal to aid in the resealing of the Kyuubi if he ever managed to break free. Naruto told them about his life up to this point, and they were saddened to hear about it. He heard them ask him what he was going to do now as he hugged them goodbye. Naruto came to a halt and said only one thing before exiting his mindscape. Make it right. Wave Country, 6 years later. While genin were typically assigned D-rank missions for a long time after graduation, Naruto insisted on doing something more exciting, and the third Hokage agreed to send them on a C-rank mission to accompany Tizuna, a master bridge builder, back to the Land of Waves. During their mission, the team was attacked by two Chunin, enemies of a level not expected on a C-rank mission. When the Chunin appeared, Naruto panicked and was struck by one of the Chunan's poisonous metal gauntlets. In Naruto's absence, Sasuke dealt with the attackers effectively, and rubbed it in by calling Naruto a scaredy cat. Naruto bled out the poison he had received by stabbing his wound with a kunai, swearing on the pain in his hand that he would never freeze up and leave his friends to fend for themselves again. With his suspicions raised by the attack, Kakashi asked Tizuna for the truth about the mission's circumstances. Tizuna explained that the Land of Waves had been taken over by a shipping magnate named Gat, who had effectively bankrupted the entire country, and that the only way to revitalize the economy was to build a bridge to the mainland, which would render Gat's shipping monopoly obsolete. Gat, on the other hand, did not want this to happen and used shinobi gangs to assert his control. The actual mission of Team 7 was to support and protect the bridge building efforts that had so far been thwarted. When Naruto arrived in the Land of Waves and was on his way to Tizuna's house, he threw a kunai at a bush, surprising the other ninja and putting them on guard. Sakura yelled at him for his apparent mistake once it was clear that it was nothing, but Naruto threw another kunai at a bush in the opposite direction. Sakura hit him on the head this time, despite Naruto's claim that he had sensed something. As it turned out, he had sensed a snow rabbit, which was now terrified because the kunai was only an inch away from its head. Naruto profusely apologized and sympathized with the rabbit, picking it up and hugging it tightly. While the others dismissed his antics as typical Naruto nonsense, Kakashi noticed something odd about the rabbit. Its fur was white. Because snow rabbits are only white in the winter, this rabbit had been raised indoors and thus belonged to someone nearby. Kakashi abruptly told everyone to duck as a massive sword spun past them, nearly killing everyone. The sword became entangled in a tree, and Zabuza Momochi, a missing nin from Kirigakure, leapt onto its handle, determined to kill Tizuna. Recognizing Zabuza as a formidable opponent, Kakashi revealed his Sharingan and stated that he would need to use it. Zabuza, moved by Kakashi's willingness to go all out for their battle, stated that killing Kakashi would be a testament to his own skill. Zabuza concluded the conversation by summoning a thick veil of mist from a nearby lake in order to hide himself from the Sharingan. Kakashi directed Team 7 to protect Tizuna, but Zabuza declared that such protection was pointless, appearing in the center of their formation. As Zabuza was about to attack with his sword, Kakashi dashed toward them and stabbed him in the stomach with his kunai just as his stroke was about to fall. Water poured from Zabuza's body, collapsing into a puddle as the real Zabuza appeared behind Kakashi, revealing that Zabuza had used the water clone technique to deceive Kakashi. Zabuza proceeded to slice Kakashi in half, but Kakashi's body dissolved into water as well, surprising Zabuza as he realized Kakashi's Sharingan must have copied the water clone technique as Zabuza charged toward him. Kakashi appeared behind Zabuza and mocked him by saying, "It's over." To everyone's surprise, a second Zabuza appeared behind Kakashi and grabbed him, transforming the first Zabuza into a pool of water. Kakashi tried to escape Zabuza's grasp, but was instead thrown into a nearby lake. Zabuza trapped him within his water prison technique as he emerged, leaving Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura to defend against another of Zabuza's clones. Kakashi told the genin to flee, but Naruto remembered his oath and joined the fight so that they could save Kakashi and keep Tizuna alive. Naruto summoned a swarm of shadow clones, which surrounded Zabuza's water clone completely. The shadow clones scattered and vanished as Zabuza's clone swung his sword, forcing the only remaining Naruto to reach into his backpack and pull out a FMA shuriken, which he gave to Sasuke. Sensing Naruto's plan, Sasuke hurled the FMA shuriken at Zabuza, who easily caught it in the air. Due to Sasuke's shadow shuriken technique, a second shuriken was hiding in the shadow of the first, and Zabuza was forced to leap over it to avoid being damaged. After passing through Zabuza, the second shuriken transformed into Naruto, who had transformed himself. Naruto threw a kunai at Zabuza, who was unable to dodge it while using the water prison technique, so he was forced to release Kakashi from his prison to avoid the attack. With Kakashi free, Zabuza was forced to start fighting, and the two used a variety of water release techniques against each other. Kakashi was able to gain the upper hand and defeat Zabuza with Zabuza's own attack thanks to his Sharingan. Just as Kakashi was about to deliver the killing blow, a masked ninja named Haku appeared and impaled Zabuza's neck with several senbon. He vanished with Zabuza's body after revealing himself to be a hunter nin sent to kill him. Kakashi, temporarily satisfied with this turn of events, decided it was time to continue escorting Tizuna home, only to collapse seconds later due to chakra exhaustion caused by his overuse of the Sharingan. As a result of this battle, Kakashi is later seen bedridden and using a crutch. During all of this, none of them noticed the dark figure in the distance who had been following them since they left the village. This dark figure was the true Naruto, the one who had mastered his powers and set out into the world to help it maintain balance. He'd done so in a variety of ways during his absence. For starters, he had murdered the Mizukage who was under the control of another, but the manipulation was too deeply ingrained in his mind to be removed, so death was the only option. Once killed, he transported the Biju to hell, where it could live forever free of humanity's clutches, which it appreciated. He had taken the former Mizukage's head and delivered it to the rebel leader, Mei Terumi, who was shocked that someone so young had easily killed him. Even when she insisted, Naruto refused to reveal his identity because the rebels wanted to know the identity of their mysterious ally, but he refused. Even when she tried to seduce him, he refused because he had his heart set on only one woman in the world, Hinata Hyuga. For the past several months, while Naruto waited for the right moment to disperse the clone and reclaim his rightful place, he had noticed her stalking him a lot of the time, which intrigued him. So he did some snooping of his own and concluded that she was in love with him, or at the very least had a crush on him. He made a mental note to express his feelings to her once he stopped hiding in the shadows, which he could do with his powers even in broad daylight because he could walk the path of death, which was only visible to spirits because it was their turf until the Shinigami came and collected them to take them to either heaven or hell. He could observe whoever he wanted without fear of detection while still seeing the world in its happenings. He also tracked down and killed the elusive Orochimaru. To be honest, Naruto was irritated about that one because when someone is said to be elusive, you'd think they'd be more difficult to find, but it took him several hours to find him and only a few minutes to kill him. He fought him with his second in command, Kabuto, but their attacks phased through him, doing no damage, and Naruto then unleashed a cloud of smoke that rapidly aged and decayed everyone within it, including Orochimaru. But Naruto stopped reminiscing and rejoined the group. When Kakashi was taken to Tizuna's house for treatment, he noticed that Zabuza's apparent death was unusual. When Hunter Nin killed their target, they usually started destroying it right away. The ninja they'd met, on the other hand, had taken Zabuza's body elsewhere. This, combined with the fact that Zabuza had been killed with senbon, weapons that were rarely fatal but were also useful for knocking people out, led Kakashi to believe that Zabuza was still alive and would return to complete Tizuna's assassination. In other news, Haku resurrected Zabuza, and though he would need time to recover, he promised to crush Kakashi the next time they met. Kakashi took Team 7 to the nearby woods for chakra training, telling them that the training would require them to learn to climb trees without using their hands. Naruto pointed out that this is impossible, but Kakashi, who was on crutches, managed to climb the tree with ease, explaining that the key was focusing chakra on the soles of the feet. The three genin all tried. Naruto, who didn't use enough chakra, took only one step before falling back to the ground. Sasuke, who used too much chakra and damaged the trunk. And Sakura, who had perfect control over her chakra, made it to a high branch on her first attempt, completing her training. For the boys, however, the training continues, and Naruto, still unable to reach the top of the tree, sought advice from Sakura. Sakura agreed, and Kakashi observed that Naruto was finally grasping the concept of teamwork. The real Naruto scoffed at this because the things he did to train in his powers were far superior to this simplistic garbage. While Naruto and Sasuke continued their training, Sakura was left in charge of protecting Tazuna. As Naruto approached Sasuke, he casually inquired as to what advice Sakura had given Naruto, but Naruto, determined to defeat Sasuke, refused to reveal it. Sakura inquired about a torn picture that Inari, Tazuna's grandson, had been looking at during dinner one night. Tazuna explains that the man in the missing portion of the image was Kaiza, Inari's father, whom Inari idolized and considered his biological parent, despite the fact that Kaiza had adopted him. Years before, a flood threatened to destroy the village, and Kaiza had managed to close the floodgates on his own, earning him the title of hero among the villagers. However, once Gat arrived in the country, Kaiza's heroic deeds enraged Gat, and Gat had him executed in front of the villagers, including Inari. The villagers lost hope after that, and Inari was crushed, disbelieving the existence of a hero. Naruto rushed off to continue his training, determined to show Inari that there was such a thing as a hero. Naruto came across Haku while resting in the woods one day, unaware of Haku's identity and mistaking him for a pretty girl. Naruto desired to become the cage of his village, while Haku desired to protect the person most precious to him, explaining that when one was protecting a precious person, one's strength reached its peak. Naruto agreed with this statement, remembering everyone who had helped him. Haku then left, but not before completely perplexing Naruto by claiming to be a boy. Haku came to a halt when he felt the boy he was just talking to explode into energy behind him as the Kyuubi was resealed into the true Naruto. Haku was terrified by this and prepared a few senbon to attack in case he needed them. He was as surprised as the fake Naruto had been by his earlier remark about him being a boy to see a stronger version of Naruto standing before him in a different outfit. Haku threw his senbon at Naruto's neck, but he didn't dodge them because they just phased through without harming him. Haku threatened him again, but Naruto held up his hands in a peace sign and explained why he was there. He handed Haku a scroll given to him by Mei in the hopes that he could find and deliver it to Zabuza during his travels, informing him of the end of the civil war and that he was being pardoned for any and all past crimes against the former Mizukage. Haku was taken aback by the news and expressed his gratitude to him. Naruto then told him to take his master and return home, where they could live their lives without fear of being hunted down. Haku said they would, and unbeknownst to them, they would never meet again in this life. Naruto then returned to the house, where he was immediately questioned about where he got the new look since he was in the woods, and why he looked stronger than he did just a few days ago. Naruto simply chuckled when asked that, and answered the questions by saying that he always had the clothes but had them sealed away because he never quite found the proper time to wear them, and the reason that he looked stronger was because no one was really paying any attention. Kakashi looked at him with suspicion, but he didn't seem to be telling any lies. He made a mental note to inform the Hokage once they returned because he was under orders to ensure Naruto didn't become too powerful to control, and something in his gut told him that there was more going on here than he could see. The next morning, Kakashi, Sasuke, and Sakura escorted Tazuna to work on the bridge while Naruto rested. Two of Gat's thugs arrived at Tazuna's house to kidnap Inari's mother. Inari attempted to save his mother on his own, inspired by Naruto's training, which he spied on when he wasn't looking. Naruto appeared just as he was about to be killed by the thugs and easily defeated them both. Naruto congratulated Inari on finally standing up for himself and left to rejoin the rest of his team, but he was in no hurry because he suspected that both Zabuza and Haku had fled the country during the night and were on their way to Mist and a better life for themselves. So when Naruto arrived at the bridge, everything was going swimmingly because they had not been attacked in any way. Inari was going door to door, trying to rally support for taking down Gat and his men. The villagers refused to fight any longer, prompting Inari to respond that he would protect those he loved, as crying would not save anyone. When Inari returned home, his mother begged him not to go, but Inari insisted that, as Kaiza's son, he must fight. Inari was surprised to see so many shadowy figures surrounding his door as he left the house. Gad arrived with an army of his men to kill the bridge builder himself while he was busy doing that. The team prepared to defend Tizuna, but Naruto simply stepped in front of them, unsealed his sides, and powered them up. Gad and his men laughed as if a child thought he could defeat them, but that smirk vanished as there was a quick glint of light from the sun's reflection on his weapons, and then Naruto was behind them with his weapons to his sides in his outstretched hands. Gad and his men's bodies fell apart seconds later, their blood spilling everywhere. His team was speechless as Naruto thrust his arm out to shake the blood from his weapons. At that point, Inari arrived with the people of Wave, ready to fight for their home, but they saw that Gad and his men were already dead, and the fact that Naruto had his weapons drawn while the rest of his team stared at him in stunned silence told them that Naruto had been the one to kill them. As the people of Wave celebrated their liberation from the tyrant, Sasuke approached him and demanded to see how Naruto had done it, as well as where he had obtained his weapon. Naruto refused to teach him and lied that he discovered the weapons in a cave years ago and, like his outfit, had never had the opportunity to use them until now. Sasuke demanded that Naruto hand over the weapons, but Naruto refused once more. Naruto sensed Kakashi was on his way to demand answers as well, so he quickly shifted realms and walked away, much to their surprise at his sudden disappearance. Naruto didn't want to be bothered by them, so he went into the woods to a location where he had hidden something for Inari because he saw that the boy possessed both courage and potential. The day the bridge was finished and the team was ready to go, they named it the Great Naruto Bridge in honor of their hero, but he was nowhere to be found. So, because they couldn't find him in any way, the team left the village without him. After they left, Inari returned home to find a large chest with a key on top and a note telling him to become stronger and that with what was in the box, he would be able to reach his true potential. He saw various books full of knowledge on an ancient order known as Demon Hunters, with blueprints on how to craft their weapons, training instructions, and a book of runes used by them in the past to become stronger as they mastered them, when he used the key to open the box to see what was left for him inside. Inari would take what he learned from Naruto's gift and form the Reaper Corp, a group of mercenaries whose power would rival that of any shinobi in any village. Since their village was a merchant city, why not also become merchants of death? Naruto stayed in the spirit realm the entire time because he knew if he went to the mortal realm, he'd be hounded by Kakashi for where he learned his techniques and Sasuke would just bitch and demand what wasn't his to have. To make matters worse, Sakura would try to force him to because she was nothing more than an Uchiha fangirl, so he remained in the spirit realm, all the way back to the village and even onwards until they reached the Hokage and reported their mission's success. They then went into detail about what they had witnessed Naruto do, as he had single-handedly killed off a small army faster than they could blink and then vanished into thin air. That last part worried the Hokage because Naruto wasn't supposed to learn how to use the Hiraishin until his loyalty was guaranteed in the future. But he calmed down when Kakashi told him that it wasn't what he thought it was because there was no flash. He simply vanished into thin air, leaving no trace. Even his dog summons couldn't find him. The Hokage was not looking forward to telling the council members this, but Naruto reappeared out of nowhere, just as mysteriously as he had appeared. He pretended he had been abducted by an unknown force, and they believed him because they had felt his power as he reappeared, and they had never felt anything like it before. He then proceeded to spin a false tale of horrors he had witnessed in this other place, and he wished to take a break from being a shinobi in order to calm his nerves. The Hokage was initially skeptical because he wanted Naruto to be a weapon, but Naruto did appear to be a jumbled mess from what he could see. Naruto requested permission to leave the village for at least a month, not to visit any other countries, but to simply visit a firemonk temple he had read about and saw that they had perfected ways to achieve inner peace, which he stated he desperately needed at the time. The Hokage summoned the council members and clan heads to explain what had occurred during Wave, with those on the civilian side demanding that he teach Sasuke how to do what he did and hand over any and all weapons he had on him. Surprisingly, Naruto agreed, but only on the condition that he be allowed to visit the monks to find inner peace. The councils agreed with the condition that he return in 1 month, or 2 if he needed more time, as long as he sent a message stating so. The Shinobi Council smirked because they knew Danzo would seize the opportunity to capture the boy and turn him into his personal weapon, so they agreed as well. So Naruto went home and packed light for his trip, and as he approached the front gate, he was met by Hinata herself, who was red in the face and couldn't say anything but hand him a small cake she had made for him in her spare time. Naruto graciously took it from her and reached into his pocket to give her a necklace in exchange. The metal came from the high heavens themselves and glowed with a holy glow, while in the center was a red stone that glowed like a burning fire that was in fact a piece of hell stone, which in itself couldn't corrupt anything, it was simply a piece of stone from the depths of hell. When Naruto was given his new abilities, he discovered that he could ascend to the heavens at will because his abilities were of angelic origin, and he could also descend into hell because the Kyuubi left trace amounts of demonic power when he was resealed into the clone. He traveled to both regions to gather the materials he needed to create this one-of-a-kind necklace in the shape of a heart with the stone in the center, symbolizing the great power that burned within Hinata's heart. He gave it to her as he told her that he had always known she had been stalking him all this time, and he was initially curious as to why, but when he found out why, he knew he had feelings for her as well. To demonstrate, he kissed her on the lips, causing her body to turn crimson as she kissed back. He then told her that while he would be gone for a while, he would return and that no matter what happened, he would always love her. Hinata simply stood there as he walked through the gates towards his destination, and fainted with a smile on her face when he was no longer visible. Naruto walked slowly towards his fictitious destination, fully aware of the 36 root nin who were following him on orders from their master. He was hit in the neck with a needle coated in sleeping drugs 3 hours after he left, which honestly didn't bother him in the least because he was immune to any type of status ailment that could affect humans, including drugging of any kind. However, he played the part and fell asleep where he stood. He felt the nin pick him up and take him to a secret entrance to their underground lair, where he was chained to the floor with seals of various kinds to keep him in place and disrupt his chakra so he couldn't escape. Naruto was unaffected by any of them because his power was angelic rather than chakra, and there was no way they could seal that, at least not without proper research into it, which they would have to do first. Danzo and his 2 lackeys entered his prison a few hours later, triumphant because they believed Naruto was now theirs to control, but Naruto simply closed his eyes and whistled a tune with no care in the world. Danzo was enraged and began slamming his cane into Naruto's head in an attempt to force him to listen as well as look at him, but Naruto was incapable of feeling pain, one of the many benefits of being the new angel of death, so he just whistled as Danzo exhausted himself trying to force his eyes open. Danzo left the room, but he sent multiple root members to deal with him, but each failed because he felt no pain and all damage to his body was healed immediately. This went on for 2 weeks, during which Danzo became increasingly irritated with him for not treating him with respect. Danzo then unzipped his hidden arm and head bandages, revealing a Sharingan hidden behind them. Naruto paused his whistling and smiled as he opened his eyes. Naruto laughed as he easily broke through the chains and seals, and with a quick swipe of his sides, he cut Danzo diagonally in half. Danzo died in agony as his men charged in to attack him, but just like Danzo, they were easily dispatched. He turned around after slaughtering all of the root as well as his 2 lackeys on the Shinobi Council to address Danzo, who he knew had used the powers he had stolen from the Senju and the Uchiha to cheat death. Danzo claimed that he would eventually force him to submit, but Naruto replied that he wouldn't get the chance because the Shinigami appeared behind Danzo and ripped out his soul, closing all the eyes in his grafted arm and causing it to shrivel up and die. During his absence, Naruto had met the Shinigami himself and told him about Malthael's demise after bestowing his powers on him. He then requested a trade for his father's soul's release from his clutches, which he agreed to if he could kill both Orochimaru and Danzo, because both of them had committed such crimes against nature that he wanted them to suffer personally under his control. And he'd just given him the second one, because when he cut Danzo in half, he infused trace amounts of the Shinigami's power, which effectively marked Danzo for death at the hands of the Shinigami, and not even his stolen power could prevent his soul from being torn from his body. Naruto then set up the next part of his plan by flaring his massive power outwards to serve as a beacon to everyone in Konoha, and they arrived within an hour in the underground lair, just as he had hoped. The Hokage was furious because he had secretly supported Danzo by allowing him to keep root as long as he used it to help the village, and now his shadow forces had all been slaughtered by the boy who should have been weak but wasn't. So he had Naruto arrested, chakra suppression seals and cuffs placed on him, and escorted to a prison cell. He informed the fire daimyo that their plan had failed and Naruto was too powerful to control, so the daimyo ordered him to have a woman conceive an Uzumaki child so that when Naruto was killed, he could reseal the Kyuubi. So they sent Hinata, who they knew had feelings for Naruto, to impregnate with an extracted bit of his seed, and once confirmed, they kept her under lock and key so as not to jeopardize their future weapon. While Naruto could have escaped at any time during his 9-month confinement, he didn't see the point because he needed to wait for the next part of his plan. And once the baby was born, he was taken away from his mother after the cord was cut, and Hinata was too exhausted to fight for her child's return. Later, the Hyuga elder entered her room and injected her with poison, causing her to die in her sleep. But as her spirit left her mortal body, the Shinigami was there to guide her to an undisclosed location that Naruto had set up with his help that would grant a spirit life once more if they had the rune to activate it, which so happened to be etched into the back of the necklace he had given her, which she used and was told to head towards Wave when she dressed up in the clothes that were left for her, and of course wait for a few hours. Naruto had planned this for a long time and set everything up to protect her because no one would look for a dead woman after her death because it would be insane to think they were still alive. Yet, of all the clothes left for her, the necklace given to her by Naruto was there as well, because she didn't have it on her when she died, because it had been unknowingly sealed to her so that only she could possess it, and when she saw it, she remembered Naruto's promise and felt happiness rise up within her. The Hokage then used Jiraiya to extract the Kyuubi into the newborn child, while Naruto just smirked because he had given Kyuubi orders on what to do when it happened. As soon as he was sealed into the newborn, whom he named Malthael after the angel who had made his life possible, Kyuubi used the rune given to him to teleport the child to his mother's cave while also releasing him from captivity by sending him personally to hell itself, where he immediately began to torture the souls of any and all humans in front of him. The Hokage was furious that the sealing had come to an end so abruptly and demanded to know where the child had gone. Naruto laughed as he demanded to know, telling him that he had no way of knowing because his power had been sealed and the Biju had left his body, so how could he harm his child? Then they prepared Naruto for transport, with a large portion of the village following behind the wheeled cage he was in, throwing objects at him and insulting him the entire time. He just whistled, as he had done to Danzo, as they made their way to the fire capital city, where the fire daimyo had set up a massive area for his public execution. The civilian council, who had all gone to see his death, took their sets, as did everyone else of higher power, while the rest of the people rejoiced at the monster's death. Naruto just laughed at their stupidity because he no longer contained the Kyuubi and yet they still saw him as a monster in the end. It appears that humanity had inherited the arrogance of their forefathers, the angels, who gave up their power to form the new humanity. The people calmed down as the clan heads took their seats and the fire daimyo stood up and announced his crimes to the people, which included treason to Konoha and killing loyal Konoha shinobi. Naruto laughed so hard when he heard the charges against him that everyone heard him. He called them all liars for believing the nonsense he was spewing and went on to explain everything wrong with his charges. He claimed Naruto was an out-of-control demon who had become too dangerous to control, but Naruto stated that the demon was no longer sealed within his body, so how could anyone still see him as a monster when the monster they despised wasn't even there? Then there were the treason charges, as well as the killing of loyal shinobi. Naruto informed them of Danzo's kidnapping and attempt to break him so that he could control him and use him as a weapon to seize control of the world. And that in the end, even the fire daimyo would perish if his plans were carried out, because Danzo was not the type of man to share power with anyone and would eventually kill not only him, but any and all of his family who attempted to reclaim the throne from him. But it was then that Naruto laughed again, explaining that he was doing so because he knew the whole thing was a huge charade. He stated that he knew why the Fire Daimyo was doing this because he wanted what was not his in the first place, such as his parents' fortunes that he should have had access to years ago instead of living off scraps, or Whirlpool itself because only one of Uzumaki blood can claim it or sell it if they are the last of their clan. He told him of his plan to wait until he was completely loyal to the village before arriving and having Naruto sign away his inheritance after some honey-sweet lies about a small amount of money that wasn't even 0.0000001% of the amount of money that was his to claim left to him from someone that he had to sign for were told to him to get him to sign. That if everything had gone as planned, not only would his fortune be lost, but so would Whirlpool, and he wouldn't have known because he wouldn't have been told. The Fire Daimyo paled as he heard Naruto speak out loud his master plan, but he wasn't done. Naruto went on to say that 3 major factors would keep him from ever claiming such things for himself, and that his filthy greedy hands would never touch a single cent of his money. His first consideration was that no one in his employ had the authority to kill him, no matter how hard they tried or what they did to try. The second was that when he discovered their secret plans to manipulate and control him, he created a clone to fool them into thinking they were succeeding, but in reality they were wasting so much time and effort trying to manipulate a boy who no longer existed in a sense, and because he was free to roam the world as a result, he had gone to the bank itself and easily gotten into the Uzumaki as well as Namikaze vaults because he was of there. The third and final factor was that he wasn't the only Uzumaki alive, as he had discovered others, so killing him wouldn't help him because Whirlpool would still be his. At this point, the Fire Daimyo was enraged to learn that all of his years of planning to obtain both of those enormous fortunes, as well as all of Whirlpool's resources, had failed. So he ordered his men to begin the execution, but they all came to a halt when they felt a surge of power around them. 4 of Nagato's paths appeared and encased themselves in a square purple energy shield, which then expanded outwards and sealed off the entire area, preventing anyone from leaving. Naruto had discovered the Akatsuki's location when he was 9, and despite not mastering his abilities until he was 10, he was more than a match for them. He arrived and demanded that they stop what they were doing immediately because it was upsetting the world's balance, but they fought him instead of listening. Only 3 members of the organization were still alive. Itachi because he had helped Naruto in his youth before he went rouge after killing his family, Nagato because he was family, and Konan because she was pure soul. It took a while to explain who he was, but he eventually won the 3 of them over. He also introduced Nagato to Karen, their other surviving clan member, whom he discovered when he attacked Orochimaru's lair. So now his cousin was carrying out his part of Naruto's master plan, which was to distract the strongest people from the village so that they wouldn't be able to properly defend Konoha from the attack that was taking place in their absence. Then it was to trap them in this field so they couldn't escape Naruto's power. Naruto then used his powers to easily break free from his restraints and seals, and as he did so, he donned the same type of wings that had once spanned behind Malthael, his hood up so that the darkness covered his face. Those closest to him tried to kill him, but he summoned his scythes and cut them down flawlessly where they stood. He then walked up to the cowering Fire Daimyo, who had pissed himself in fear by this point, and simply snapped his fingers. When he did, dead hands appeared from the ground and drew him into a fiery portal that appeared beneath him into the fiery depths of hell, where he would suffer for all eternity for his greed, one of the 7 deadly sins. The Hokage and Jiraiya both tried to strike him down, but they were both stopped by needles in their necks that caused them to fall forward. They were taken aback to see Shizune standing next to Naruto as his ally of all things. Jiraiya demanded to know why she did this, as well as where Tsunade was. Shizune explained to them that Naruto had found them in disguise years ago and had gotten Tsunade extremely drunk because she was not one to pass up free alcohol, and once drunk enough, he had asked her questions about Naruto. She'd gone on a drunken rant about her hatred for the brat and how she'd make him suffer if she ever saw him again for killing Kushina. Naruto had had enough by this point and teleported them to the woods, where he proceeded to cut off her head and crush it beneath his foot. As Shizune prepared to attack him and demanded to know why he had done that in the first place, he kneeled down to pick up the gem that had been in her forehead. Naruto revealed his true identity to her, as well as the fact that the gem she was carrying was of demonic origin. That it gave Tsunade her youthful appearance by draining another's life force. that if he hadn't intervened, she would have died from having her life force sucked dry in about 5 years. He then crushed the gem, causing the life force in Tsunade's dead body to return to Shizune, allowing her to die sooner than expected. Shizune had been Naruto's ally since. Shizune then took a kunai and stabbed Jiraiya in the head while twisting the blade because she despised perverts. Naruto approached the Hokage and told him that he wanted him to know something before he died. That all of his former teachers and friends despised him for his actions in his later years. His teachers despised him. Naruto was despised by his parents. Even his own wife despised him, not only for his actions against Naruto, but also for transforming Asuma into the same type of monster that he was, with their eldest being spared only because he died before he could be corrupted by him. That all of his plans had failed miserably, that the so-called god of shinobi had been outplayed by a 14-year-old child whom he had attempted to control. As he was told all of this, the Hokage became enraged and told Naruto that Kami himself would smite him in the end for his actions, to which Naruto and Shizune both chuckled. Naruto then took his scythes and arranged them so that the Hokage's heat was trapped in the curves, encasing his entire neck. He leaned in close and whispered something into his ear, sending chills up his spine. Kami is no longer alive. I killed him myself. Naruto then quickly decapitated the body. He then stood up and nodded to Shizune, who understood the message and made the hand signs to encase herself in a protective bubble. Naruto then released the same cloud that he had used to kill Orochimaru, slowly devouring everyone trapped within the field. An epilogue 10 years later. After Naruto's actions, the world had regained its equilibrium. His assault on the Fire Capital was only the beginning, as he had used his powers to transform those he killed into the forces of his Reapers, which he used to wage war with the other shinobi villages, minus Suna and Mist, who had surrendered peacefully and agreed to the terms imposed on them. The others had been wiped out, with only a few people surviving and submitting. The daimyos of the countries were killed, and the land was formed into a new empire led by a woman named Koyuki, whom Naruto had assisted in regaining her rightful place on the throne by killing her tyrant of an uncle. Within a year, the land had become the Spring Empire, thanks to the technology that Spring had given to everyone in order to improve people's lives. The Jinchuriki had vanished, not because they had died, but because Naruto had fulfilled his promise to Kyuubi years before and sent them into hell itself to live out their dreams of torturing the people who tortured their containers for eternity. Naruto was living a quiet happy life in the village on the outskirts of Wave because the main part of it had become an industrial area due to all the trading and shipping done there with his wife Hinata and their 3 children, 2 boys and a newborn daughter, at the time. They were happy and content with their lives, and to think that all it would take was the assistance of a single angel.
That's it for today. If you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.